welcome to another episode of Vintage Gadgets and Music, where I talk about music and show off some cool gadgets. Whatever comes first, whatever I got time for in this 10 to 15 minute segment. Anyway, my last two videos were actually supposed to be one, and it's supposed to have an intro like this one here, but the intro messed up the entire video because of the microphone I use. I don't know, that's what I guess. But now, hopefully, this will work out by just using the stereo microphones within this camera. But without further ado, here's some cool gadgets and music. Here I have an Emerson Clock radio with a cassette player and an 8-track tape player. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever seen one of these. I know I haven't until I laid my eyes on this at a thrift store. But I thought it was kind of an interesting little gadget. Emerson probably rates not the finest electronics, but at least it works. I mean, Emerson is one of those department store type electronic companies. Rates down there with sound design and all that stuff. Well, here's the 8-track tape player. I'm going to play a little Led Zeppelin, some vintage music for you. Now it works, but it does double track a lot. We hear more than you know, the tracks aren't isolated. You can hear it. I put it to track 2, it's playing the same song. Now if I pull up on the tape, you can see it'll separate this. And the track lights don't all light up. It'd be cool if you could wake up to an 8-track playing instead of just the radio. Or at least you might be able to, I'm not sure really. I've never tried it. My guess is just the radio. This is Presence by Led Zeppelin. Well, that was the Led Zeppelin tape, and now the cassette player. I think I can, oh yeah, change it to cassette. Now the track 4, what I know, oh, okay, cassette motor stop, okay. That lights up when I don't want it to, but. Yeah, that song again, I know. That's the low tone. That's the high tone. Cassette works really good. There's no rewind, you gotta just fast forward only, and if you want to rewind it, you gotta fast forward it. But first turn the tape over, then fast forward it, and then flip it over again. And we'll play the other side. This is a bunch of stuff I recorded like 30 years ago. The Carpenters. It's off of Wolfman Jack Show. Got a lot of old tapes like that. Been recording stuff for a long time. Not as much as recently because of digital and all that. Now I'm going back to the analog jazz, you know. And now let's see, we got the radio. Somehow I'll find the radio on this thing. I just shut the stupid thing off. Power on. Oh, AM, FM, okay. All fails. Look at the dials. It's got a dimmer on the clock. Sounds better at the low tone.
you have grown.
Try AM here, folks. Good old AM, you can always count on it for noise.
They need a parent at in the comfy couch. Working out. What a ride and you'd understand.
That sounds good.
Every time I try to tell you, the words just came out wrong. So I had.
It's got a simulated wood finish, made out of plastic. All the clock controls on top. Sounds pretty good for its age and for the quality of its manufacturer. The Emerson Clock radio with dual tape player, 8-track and cassette. Now for a little unusual tidbit here. Paul McCartney, one of the Beatles, if you never heard of him or them, back in 1969 was supposedly have died in a car crash. Actually, it was 1966. In 1969, the rumors were flying because of clues on their albums, on their covers, and on their songs. Well, here's another little tidbit that I found on a tape that I bid on from eBay. It was recorded off some Canadian radio station. Another clue I never heard of and maybe no one else has. So take it away, reel to reel, made by Sony.
This is K97. Did Paul McCartney die in a car accident in 1966? Here's another clue on K97.
Throughout the course of the weekend, we talked at length about many of the clues on the front cover of Sgt. Pepper's. But this time, look at the cover as a whole. Notice how many of the people pictured there died violent or unusual or premature deaths. James Dean is there, Marilyn Monroe, Lenny Bruce, Stephen Crane, many other people. Are all of these people grouped around the grave because they suffered a fate similar to Paul's?
I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in and stops my mind from wandering where it will go. I'm feeling.
Did Paul McCartney die in a car accident in 1966? Here's another clue on K97.
You know, we asked Beatle author Joel Glacier if during the research for his book, had he been able to unearth any witnesses to the accident that is supposed to have taken Paul McCartney's life in November of 1966. He said no, but there is this one woman.
Well, she's one of many people who call, but she's one of the few who I think is a credible person. There's a nurse who said she was working in London Hospital in the fall of '66, and remembers when somebody was brought in middle of the night, emergency, practically dead on arrival. And she said right away the rumor around the hospital was it was Paul McCartney. She doesn't know who started the rumor, but she says some very unusual things happened. First, nobody ever denied the rumor. And second, everybody was very hush-hushed about it and were told not to talk about this person who was brought in. And he was taken out immediately without the normal procedures, you know, death certificates and things like that. And at the same time, there was supposedly somebody in London who looked like Paul, who was creating quite a stir on the streets in terms of him looking like Paul. So she had kept this a secret until a year ago, when she got a hold of me because she heard about me on a radio station. And over several times that she called, she finally gave me her name, finally gave me her phone number, and she said she figured she might as well tell me because nobody else seems to have been interested anymore.
Well, that's that's another episode of Vintage Music and Gadgets, or Gadgets and Music, whatever way you want it. Hope you enjoyed this little tidbit of information and historic electronics. Hope to be back with more in the future. I'll talk to you later. This is Ed Stevens, also known as Bullshit 48. Yeah.